Maya Chen stood outside the massive crystal doors of the Bloodline Hall, her fists clenched so tight her knuckles had turned white. The rejection letter crumpled in her left hand felt heavier than a neutron star. After 23 years of preparation, after mastering every combat technique the human military academies could teach, after scoring perfect marks on every genetic compatibility test, they had still denied her entry. The reason was simple and brutal. Her bloodline wasn't pure enough. Maya was half human, half Kepler colonist, and apparently that made her unworthy to stand among the chosen heirs of the Galactic Consortium's most powerful families. The Bloodline Hall loomed before her like a monument to everything she could never have. Its walls were carved from living starstone that pulsed with the combined DNA signatures of 1,000 ruling bloodlines from across the galaxy. Each pulse reminded visitors that only the genetically perfect could enter, only those with unbroken lineages stretching back to the first space colonizers. Maya had spent her entire life believing she belonged here. Her mother, Dr. Sarah Chen, had been one of humanity's greatest xenobiologists before she fell in love with a Kepler mining engineer named Darius. Their union had been controversial but not forbidden. Back then, the galaxy was younger, more accepting of mixed heritage. But that was before the Purity Wars, before the Great Cleansing, before bloodlines became more important than ability. A group of young nobles pushed past Maya, their perfectly symmetrical faces marked with the glowing bio-tattoos that indicated their genetic rank. They didn't even acknowledge her existence. To them, she was invisible, just another failed applicant who would fade into obscurity among the billions of ordinary citizens. But Maya wasn't ordinary, and she refused to fade. As the nobles disappeared through the crystal doors that wouldn't open for her, Maya noticed something strange. The starstone walls, which normally pulsed with a steady blue rhythm, flickered slightly when she moved closer. It was so brief she almost missed it, but there it was again. The ancient stone was reacting to her presence in a way it definitely shouldn't. Maya pressed her palm against the cool surface, and for just a moment, the entire wall blazed with golden light. The reaction was so violent that alarms began shrieking throughout the hall's outer chambers. Security drones materialized from hidden alcoves, their weapons already charging with deadly energy. She jerked her hand back and ran, 3 blocks away, gasping for breath in an alley between 2 residential towers. Maya tried to make sense of what had happened. The starstone walls of the Bloodline Hall were supposed to be completely inert to anyone without proper genetic credentials. They were the ultimate security system, more reliable than any technology the galaxy had ever produced. Yet somehow her touch had triggered a response that sent the entire facility into lockdown. Her communication device buzzed with an urgent message from her mother. "Maya, where are you? Something's happening at the hall. The news feeds are going crazy." Maya looked up at the nearest public screen and saw her own face staring back at her. The footage showed her touching the wall, showed the golden explosion of light, showed her fleeing like a criminal. The news anchors were calling it everything from a terrorist attack to a genetic anomaly. None of them seemed to know what to make of it. But Maya was beginning to understand. The stories her mother used to tell her about her grandmother, about the strange woman who had appeared on Earth just before the first interstellar colonies were established, suddenly seemed less like fairy tales and more like hidden history. Her grandmother had claimed to be from a place beyond the known galaxy, from a civilization so ancient that it predated all current star maps. She had spoken of guardians and bloodline tests that went deeper than simple genetics, that measured something the current galactic rulers had forgotten how to recognize. Maya's mother had always dismissed these stories as the ramblings of an old woman who had lost her mind during the long journey between stars. But what if they weren't stories at all? What if they were warnings? The communication device buzzed again, but this time the message wasn't from her mother. The sender was listed as unknown, but the words made Maya's blood run cold. "The Guardian awaits. Sector 7, Level 300. Abandoned Research Station Prometheus. Come alone, true heir." Maya stared at the message until it automatically deleted itself. No record remained that it had ever existed, but the words were burned into her memory. Someone knew what had happened at the hall. Someone was expecting her. The abandoned research station Prometheus floated in the dead zone between sectors, a relic from humanity's early attempts to crack the secrets of faster-than-light travel. It had been empty for decades, supposedly haunted by radiation ghosts and temporal anomalies that made it too dangerous for salvage operations. Maya stole a maintenance pod from the transport depot and set course for coordinates that shouldn't exist. As she flew through the silent darkness between inhabited worlds, she wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life, or finally stepping onto the path she was meant to walk. The research station appeared on her sensors like a skeletal hand reaching out from the void. Its hull was scarred by meteor impacts and solar radiation, but the docking bay still functioned. As her pod settled into the ancient cradle, Maya felt a strange sensation, as if something vast and patient had been waiting for her arrival. The airlock cycled with a hiss of recycled atmosphere. Emergency lighting flickered to life along the corridors, triggered by her presence. Every step echoed in the empty halls, but Maya didn't feel alone. Something was watching her, evaluating her, measuring her worth against criteria she couldn't begin to imagine. Deep in the station's central core, past laboratories filled with equipment she didn't recognize and through chambers that seemed to bend space around themselves, Maya found what she was looking for. The Guardian stood 15 feet tall, its crystalline body radiating a soft blue light that made the air itself sing with harmonics. It was beautiful and terrible, ancient beyond measure, and when it spoke, its voice resonated in frequencies that bypassed her ears entirely and spoke directly to her soul. "Welcome, daughter of two worlds. We have much to discuss." Maya stood frozen before the Guardian, her heart hammering against her ribs, the crystalline being towered over her. Its body composed of what looked like living diamond that shifted and flowed like water. Patterns of light raced through its translucent form, creating constellations that hurt to look at directly. "You're afraid," the Guardian observed, its voice like wind chimes made of stars. "Good. Fear means you understand the magnitude of what stands before you." "What are you?" Maya managed to whisper. "I am the last of my kind, the final guardian of the Bloodline protocols established when your galaxy was young and full of promise." The being moved closer, and Maya felt waves of ancient sadness rolling off it. "I am the one who has waited 3,000 years for the true heir to finally present herself." Maya took a step back. "True heir to what? I'm nobody special. I couldn't even get into the Bloodline Hall." The Guardian's laughter was like crystal bells breaking. "The Bloodline Hall? That monument to genetic pride and ignorance. Do you know what they test for in their sacred chambers, child? Surface markers. Cosmetic traits. The biological equivalent of checking whether someone's clothes match. Holographic displays materialized around them, showing DNA helixes that twisted in impossible directions. Maya recognized some of the patterns from her genetics courses, but others defied everything she thought she knew about biological structure. "The true bloodline markers run deeper than anything the current galactic rulers understand," the Guardian continued. "They exist in dimensions of genetic code that your scientists haven't even discovered yet. Your grandmother carried them. Your mother carries them dormant. And in you they have finally awakened." Maya's mind reeled. "My grandmother. She really was from somewhere else, wasn't she? She was a refugee from the collapse of the First Galactic Empire, the civilization that existed before the current star maps were drawn. When that empire fell to civil war and genetic madness, the survivors scattered across the cosmos. Some founded what became the Consortium. Others, like your grandmother's people, fled to the edge of known space and beyond. The holographic displays shifted, showing star maps that made Maya dizzy, entire spiral arms of galaxies she'd never heard of, connected by streams of energy that defied physics. At the center of it all was a single point of brilliant light. "The heart of all things," the Guardian said softly, "the source from which all consciousness flows, the wellspring of life itself. The First Empire found it, learned from it, and for a brief time achieved something approaching perfection. But perfection requires sacrifice, and they were not willing to pay the price." Maya stared at the impossible map. "What kind of sacrifice?" "The sacrifice of ego, of individual ambition, of the belief that any one species, any one bloodline, any one world could claim dominance over the symphony of existence." The Guardian's form darkened with remembered pain. Instead, they chose to fragment the bloodline, to scatter the genetic keys that could unlock the heart's wisdom. They told themselves it was for safety, but in truth it was cowardice. The displays faded, leaving them alone in the blue glow of the Guardian's presence. Maya felt small and overwhelmed, like a child who had stumbled into an adult conversation about matters beyond her comprehension. Why me? She asked. Why now? Because the galaxy is dying, child. The consortium may rule 1,000 worlds, but they rule over stagnation. For 3,000 years, they have done nothing but maintain the status quo. Terrified of change, terrified of growth, terrified of anything that might challenge their carefully constructed hierarchy. Maya thought of the rejection letter crumpled in her pocket, of the sneering nobles who had dismissed her as worthless. I've seen how they treat anyone who doesn't fit their perfect little boxes. Yes, and while they play their games of genetic purity, the real threats gather in the darkness between stars. The devourers have awakened from their long sleep. The silence spreads from world to world, consuming entire civilizations without leaving so much as a whisper behind. And the heart of all things grows dim, starved of the connection it needs to sustain life itself. The station shuddered around them, and for a moment Maya thought they were under attack. But it was just the ancient structure responding to the Guardian's emotional state, metal and crystal resonating with grief and urgency. What do you want from me? Maya asked. The Guardian extended one of its appendages, which reshaped itself into something resembling a hand. I want you to become what you were born to be. The genetic markers in your bloodline are the key to awakening the heart of all things. But first you must prove yourself worthy. How? By learning to see beyond the surface, beyond the lies the consortium has built their power upon. By gathering the other lost children of the First Empire. By facing the trials that will test not just your strength, but your understanding of what it truly means to be alive in a universe where every consciousness is precious. Maya felt a chill of fear, mixed with something else. Something that might have been excitement. And if I fail? Then the galaxy dies slowly, one world at a time, until nothing remains but empty space and the echoes of what might have been. The Guardian's hand hovered near Maya's face, not quite touching. But I do not believe you will fail. The Starstone walls recognized you for what you are, even when the Guardians of the Hall could not. That is not chance, child. That is destiny. Maya reached out and grasped the Guardian's crystalline hand. The moment their skin made contact, the universe exploded into sensation. She saw flashes of the First Empire at its height, cities that floated between dimensions, beings of pure thought dancing among the stars. She felt the agony of the Empire's collapse, the desperation of the survivors as they fled into exile, and underneath it all, she felt something vast and patient and infinitely kind, waiting for its children to come home. When the visions faded, Maya found herself changed. Her eyes now carried flecks of gold that hadn't been there before. Her skin seemed to glow with its own inner light. She felt stronger, faster, more aware of the currents of energy that flowed through all living things. The first awakening, the Guardian said with satisfaction. Your bloodline has accepted its heritage. But this is only the beginning. Are you ready to begin your true education? Maya looked around the abandoned station, thinking of her old life, her failed dreams, her place in a society that had never wanted her. Then she thought of the dying galaxy, of the threats gathering in the darkness, of the responsibility that now rested on her shoulders. I'm ready, she said. The Guardian's form brightened with something that might have been joy. Then let us begin. The next 6 months changed Maya in ways she couldn't have imagined. The Guardian taught her to see the universe as it truly was, beneath the comfortable lies that most beings use to make sense of existence. Energy flowed through everything like invisible rivers of light. Every living creature sang with its own unique frequency, creating a symphony that spanned entire star systems. The empty space between worlds wasn't empty at all, but filled with currents of consciousness that connected every mind to every other. Maya learned to read these patterns, to sense the health of entire populations from light years away. Earth's song was strong but troubled, heavy with the weight of environmental damage and social discord. The consortium's core worlds hummed with artificial harmony, their natural rhythms suppressed by technology and genetic manipulation. But it was the silent zones that worried her most. Growing patches of absolute nothingness where the universal song simply stopped, as if something had devoured not just the worlds, but the very concept of existence itself. The silence spreads. Faster now, the Guardian observed during one of their training sessions. Maya floated in a meditation pose. Her consciousness expanded across several light years of space, feeling the pulse of distant civilizations. 3 more worlds have gone dark since your training began. Maya opened her eyes, the golden flecks, now bright enough to illuminate the darkness around them. We have to do something. We will. But first, you must understand what you're truly facing. The Guardian created another holographic display, this one showing the galaxy as a vast web of interconnected light. Dark spots spread across the web like infection, growing larger with each passing day. The silence isn't just destroying worlds, the Guardian explained. It's unmaking them, removing them from the fabric of reality so completely that soon, no one will remember they ever existed. The beings responsible call themselves the Devourers, and they are the antithesis of everything the First Empire stood for. Maya studied the display, noting how the dark zones were spreading in a specific pattern. They're not random. The attacks are coordinated. Very good. The Devourers learned from our previous defeat of them. They've spent 3,000 years in hibernation, studying our weaknesses, planning their return. This time, they're not trying to conquer the galaxy. They're trying to edit it out of existence entirely. The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. How many beings live on those worlds that have gone silent? Billions. Trillions. All erased not just from life, but from history itself. If we fail to stop them, even the memory of their existence will be consumed. Maya clenched her fists, feeling power surge through her awakened bloodline. Then we don't fail. What's our next move? The Guardian's form brightened with approval. Now you begin to understand why you were chosen. But we cannot face the Devourers alone. The full power of the heart of all things requires more than one awakened bloodline. You must find the others. Others like me? Scattered across the galaxy, most of them unaware of their true heritage. The bloodline fragmentation was more complete than even I realized. Some carry Andalusian markers from the crystal worlds. Others bear the genetic memory of the void dancers who could walk between dimensions. A few might even carry traces of the harmony singers whose voices could literally reshape reality. Maya felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. How am I supposed to find them? The galaxy has billions of inhabited worlds. The same way the Starstone walls recognized you, the awakened bloodline calls to its scattered kindred. But first, you need a ship, a crew, and most importantly, you need to convince the consortium that you're not a threat to their established order. The Guardian led her deeper into the research station, to chambers she hadn't seen before. Here, ancient technology hummed with barely contained power. Devices that looked like they'd been grown rather than built lined the walls, their organic curves pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Your grandmother's ship, the Guardian said, gesturing to a sleek vessel that seemed to be part crystal, part metal, and part something else entirely. The Star Song. It's been waiting for you. Maya approached the ship with reverence. Its hull shimmered with the same golden light that now flowed through her veins. When she placed her hand on its surface, she felt the vessel respond, its systems awakening after decades of slumber. It's alive, she breathed. All true ships are. The First Empire understood that the boundary between technology and biology is just another illusion. The Star Song will serve you as it served your grandmother, but it will also protect you from detection by consortium sensors. Maya spent the next 3 hours exploring her inheritance. The ship was larger inside than outside, its internal spaces folded through dimensions that shouldn't exist. The bridge was a wonder of organic architecture, with controls that responded to thought as much as touch. In the cargo bay, she found weapons that could crack planets and healing devices that could resurrect the recently dead. But it was the navigation system that truly amazed her. Instead of star charts, it showed the galaxy as a living network of consciousness with bright nodes indicating worlds where awakened bloodlines might be found. Your first destination, the Guardian said, pointing to a pulsing light in the outer rim territories. A mining colony called New Petra. The readings suggest someone there carries Andalusian markers, though they're probably unaware of their significance. Maya studied the data streams flowing around the ship's displays. New Petra was a hard world, barely habitable, populated by the descendants of criminals and refugees. The perfect place for someone to hide from the consortium's genetic surveillance. What about you? Maya asked. Are you coming with me? The Guardian's form dimmed slightly. I cannot leave this place. My existence is tied to the station's quantum field generators. But I will always be with you in spirit, and you can contact me through the ship's communication array whenever you need guidance. Maya felt a stab of loneliness at the thought of leaving the only being who truly understood what she was becoming. But she also felt the pull of destiny, the knowledge that countless lives depended on her success. There's something else you need to know, the Guardian said softly. The consortium has classified you as a level 7 genetic anomaly. They've dispatched their best hunter to track you down. Hunter? Captain Marcus Thorne of the CSS Retribution. He's never failed to bring in a target, and he has resources that would challenge even your awakened abilities. You'll need to be very careful. Maya nodded grimly. She'd heard of Thorne, everyone had. The consortium's most decorated officer, a man who'd single-handedly put down 3 separate colonial rebellions. If he was hunting her, it meant the ruling families saw her as a serious threat. Let them come, Maya said, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. I'm done hiding from people who think bloodline purity matters more than the survival of the galaxy. She spent her last night on the station memorizing everything the Guardian could teach her about the awakening process, about reading bloodline markers in others, about the subtle arts of convincing people to embrace destinies they'd never imagined. When she finally boarded the Star Song and sealed the airlock behind her, Maya felt the weight of 3,000 years of history settling on her shoulders. The ship's engines came online with a sound like singing crystals, and space folded around them as they jumped toward the first of many destinations. Behind her, the Guardian watched until the ship disappeared into hyperspace, its ancient heart heavy with hope and fear in equal measure. The true test was beginning. New Petra was everything Maya had expected and worse. The mining colony clung to the surface of a dead world like a scab, its domed habitats connected by pressurized tunnels that snaked across a landscape of red dust and jagged rocks. The air recyclers were old and failing, giving everything a metallic taste that made her throat burn. Maya had disguised the Star Song as a cargo hauler and landed at the main spaceport without attracting attention. Her awakened senses immediately picked up the signature she was looking for, a distant harmony that sang of crystal caves and beings made of living stone. The Andalusian bloodline was here, but it was faint, diluted by generations of mixing with baseline human genetics. She followed the signal through the colony's cramped corridors, past gambling dens and black market augmentation clinics, into the deep mining sectors where the poorest residents scraped out a living in the planet's toxic depths. The harmony grew stronger as she descended, leading her to a section of tunnels that had been officially abandoned after a cave-in 3 years earlier. But someone was still down here. Maya could hear the rhythmic sound of mining equipment echoing through the darkness, accompanied by something else that made her bloodline sing in recognition. Someone was humming, their voice carrying harmonics that resonated with the crystal formations in the tunnel walls. She found him in a natural cavern deep beneath the official mining levels, surrounded by formations of raw starstone that pulsed with their own inner light. He was young, maybe 20, with the lean build of someone who'd spent his life in low gravity. His skin had the faint translucent quality that marked him as one of the crystal-born, and when he looked up at her approach, his eyes were solid silver. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice carrying that same harmonic undertone she'd heard from outside. "My name is Maya Chen. I'm here because you're in danger." The young man laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Lady, I live in an abandoned mine on a dead world, stealing starstone to sell on the black market. Danger is my middle name." Maya stepped closer, letting her own awakened aura become visible. The golden light that flowed through her bloodline cast dancing shadows on the cavern walls, and she saw his silver eyes widen in recognition. "What are you?" he whispered. "The same thing you are, a descendant of the First Empire, carrying genetic markers that predate the consortium by 3,000 years. Maya gestured to the starstone formations around them. "How long have you been able to make them sing?" His face went pale. "How did you know about that?" "Because I can do it too. And because there are people hunting for beings like us, people who want to either control us or eliminate us entirely." Maya sat down on a natural stone bench, making herself less threatening. "What's your name?" "Zach Anderson. And you're crazy if you think I'm some kind of ancient royalty. My family's been mining trash worlds for 6 generations." Maya smiled. "Your great-great-grandmother was named Lyrelai, wasn't she? And she used to tell stories about cities made of living crystal, where thoughts became music and music became reality." Zach's mouth fell open. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because those weren't stories. They were memories passed down through your bloodline even when the conscious mind forgot them." Maya stood and approached one of the starstone formations. When she touched it, the crystal began to glow, its internal structure responding to her presence. The Andalusians were master builders, architects who could grow entire cities from seed crystals smaller than your thumb. They understood that consciousness and matter are just different frequencies of the same universal song. Zach stared as Maya made the starstone pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. "This is impossible. No, it's inheritance. And right now, that inheritance is the only thing that might save the galaxy from something called the Silence." Maya turned to face him fully. "I need your help, Zach. We're stronger together than apart." Before Zach could respond, alarms began wailing throughout the mining complex. Through the cavern's stone walls, Maya could feel the distinctive energy signature of consortium military vessels dropping out of hyperspace. "They found me faster than I expected," Maya muttered. She'd hoped to have more time to convince Zach, to ease him into understanding his heritage. Now they'd have to do this the hard way. "Who found you?" Zach asked, but Maya was already moving, gathering her gear and checking the charge on her weapons. "Captain Marcus Thorne and the CSS Retribution. We need to get to my ship before they lock down the spaceport." They ran through the abandoned tunnels, guided by emergency lighting that cast eerie shadows on the walls. Behind them, Maya could hear the heavy footsteps of power-armored soldiers beginning their descent into the mining complex. Thorne wasn't taking any chances. "There's a maintenance shaft that leads directly to the spaceport," Zach said, pointing to a narrow opening in the tunnel wall. "But it's barely wide enough for one person. Lead the way." They crawled through the shaft in single file, the sound of their breathing amplified by the confined space. Maya's enhanced hearing picked up radio chatter from the soldiers behind them, fragments of orders about containment protocols and termination authorizations. They emerged from the shaft into the spaceport's main hangar, just as Thorne's forces finished surrounding the building. Through the transparent aluminum windows, Maya could see the CSS Retribution hanging in orbit like a silver dagger pointed at the colony's heart. "That's your ship?" Zach asked, pointing to the disguised Starsong. "Trust me, it's more than it appears." Maya was already activating the ship's systems through her neural link, feeling the vessel's eager response as it prepared for immediate departure. The hangar's main doors exploded inward as consortium soldiers breached the building. Maya grabbed Zach's hand and ran for the ship, energy bolts sizzling past their heads as the soldiers opened fire. They reached the Starsong's airlock just as Captain Thorne himself appeared in the breach, his black armor making him look like death incarnate. His voice boomed across the hangar, amplified by his suit's speakers. "Maya Chen, by order of the Galactic Consortium, you are under arrest for genetic terrorism and crimes against racial purity. Surrender immediately and your companion will be spared." Maya hit the airlock controls and pulled Zach inside. "Counteroffer," she shouted back. "Go to hell." The Starsong's engines ignited with a roar that shattered every window in the hangar. The ship rose through the building's emergency exit, just as Thorne's soldiers fired a volley of anti-ship missiles, but the missiles passed right through the Starsong as if it wasn't there. The ship's phase generators, technology that the consortium had never managed to reverse engineer, rendered it temporarily intangible. "Impossible." Thorne's voice crackled over the emergency frequency. "All ships intercept course. Do not let them reach hyperspace." The Starsong streaked upward through New Petra's thin atmosphere, its hull shimmering as it phased in and out of normal space. Zach stared at the controls in amazement as displays showed the ship's impossible capabilities. "This is First Empire technology," he breathed. "Your inheritance," Maya said, her hands dancing over the organic controls. "Every descendant of the Crystal Builders has a right to these ships, these weapons, these capabilities. The consortium has spent 3,000 years making sure you never learned that." They broke orbit just as the Retribution's fighters reached intercept position. Energy cannons lit up the space around them, but the Starsong was already folding space around itself, preparing to jump to hyperspace. Where are we going? Zack asked. Maya smiled as the stars stretched into lines around them. To find the others. Your people aren't the only ones the consortium has been suppressing. There are descendants of the Void Dancers hidden in the neutral zone, and rumor of a harmony singer working as a street musician on Kepler Station. The ship jumped, leaving New Petra and its troubles far behind. But Maya knew Thorn wouldn't give up. The hunt was just beginning, and every move she made was being watched by eyes that saw her awakening not as hope for the galaxy's future, but as a threat to everything the consortium had built. In the cargo bay, Zack sat among the wonders of his inheritance, trying to process everything that had happened. For the first time in his life, the starstone fragments in his pockets were singing in harmony with his heartbeat, responding to genetic markers that had awakened in the presence of another descendant. He was beginning to understand that his old life was over. Whatever came next would be larger, stranger, and infinitely more dangerous than anything he'd ever imagined. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in the shadow of Kepler Station's towering spires, watching a young woman play violin for credits in the bustling marketplace. The musician was good, extraordinarily good, but that wasn't what had drawn Maya's attention. Every note the woman played seemed to resonate with frequencies that existed beyond normal sound, creating harmonics that made the air itself shimmer. Zack stood beside her, his silver eyes reflecting the station's neon lighting. In the weeks since leaving New Petra, he'd grown more comfortable with his awakening abilities. The starstone fragments he carried now responded to his emotions, glowing brighter when he was excited and dimming when he was afraid. That's her? He asked quietly. Maya nodded. Arya Kovac. Street records show she's been busking on this level for 2 years, ever since she arrived from the outer colonies as a refugee. But listen to how the crowd responds to her music. They both watched as passers-by slowed their hurried pace when they entered the musician's range. Stressed faces relaxed. Arguing couples stopped fighting. Even the station's security guards seemed calmer when they patrolled this section of the marketplace. She's unconsciously using harmony singer abilities, Maya realized. Her music is actually healing people's emotional wounds. They approached carefully, not wanting to startle her. Arya was young, maybe 19, with the pale skin and delicate bone structure common to low-gravity worlders. Her violin was an ancient instrument, its wood worn smooth by generations of hands, but when she played, it sang with the voice of angels. When her current song ended, Maya stepped forward and dropped a credit chip worth more than most people earned in a month into the violin case. Arya looked up in surprise, her eyes a deep violet that seemed to shift colors in the artificial light. Thank you, Arya said softly. That's very generous. You're very talented, Maya replied. I don't think I've ever heard music quite like that before. Arya's expression became guarded. I just play what comes naturally. And what comes naturally is extraordinary. Maya sat down on a nearby bench, making herself less intimidating. My name is Maya Chen, and this is Zack Anderson. We're looking for people with special abilities, people who might be interested in something bigger than street performing. I'm not interested in joining any criminal organizations, Arya said quickly, starting to pack up her violin. Not criminal, quite the opposite, actually. Maya let a hint of her golden aura become visible, just enough for Arya's awakened senses to detect. We're trying to save the galaxy from something that wants to unmake existence itself. Arya froze, her hands trembling as she sensed the power radiating from Maya. What are you? The same thing you are. A descendant of beings who understood that consciousness and reality are connected in ways the current galactic powers have forgotten. Maya gestured to the crowd moving around them. You've been healing people without even realizing it, haven't you? Your music doesn't just sound beautiful, it actually repairs psychological damage. Tears began forming in Arya's violet eyes. My grandmother used to tell me stories about singers who could reshape the world with their voices. I thought they were just fairy tales. They were history, Zack said gently, his own silver eyes glowing with sympathy. My family told similar stories about crystal cities and Livingstone. Turns out they were all true. Arya looked around the marketplace at the faces of people who had been unknowingly touched by her gift. If what you're saying is real, if I really can heal people with music, then why am I hiding on a space station playing for credits? Because there are forces in this galaxy that don't want you to remember what you're capable of, Maya said. The Galactic Consortium has spent 3,000 years suppressing bloodlines like ours, convincing us we're nothing special, so we never challenge their authority. Before Arya could respond, the marketplace's ambient lighting shifted to emergency amber. Security announcements echoed from hidden speakers, ordering all civilians to clear the area immediately. Through the crowd, Maya spotted the distinctive black armor of Consortium Special Forces moving toward their position. "Thorn found us again," Maya muttered. The man was persistent. She had to give him that. "Who's Thorn?" Arya asked, but Maya was already pulling her toward the nearest exit. "Someone who thinks people like us are too dangerous to live freely. Come on, we need to reach my ship." They ran through Kepler Station's labyrinthine corridors, past shops and restaurants that were hastily closing their security barriers. The station's population knew what Consortium raids looked like, and everyone was eager to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. Maya's enhanced senses tracked the positions of Thorn's soldiers as they spread out through the station's levels. The man was being more methodical this time, blocking every possible escape route before moving in for the capture. "There," Zack pointed to a maintenance access tunnel. "We can reach the docking ring through the service passages." They crawled through the tunnel system, guided by emergency lighting and Zack's natural ability to navigate underground spaces. Behind them, they could hear the heavy footsteps of power armor as Thorn's forces began their own pursuit. "I don't understand," Arya whispered as they crawled. "Why is the Consortium so afraid of people like us?" "Because we represent everything they've tried to suppress," Maya replied. "The knowledge that consciousness is more powerful than technology, that cooperation is stronger than domination, that the universe is vast enough for everyone to find their place in it." They emerged into the docking ring, just as the first explosions rocked the station. Thorn wasn't being subtle this time. His soldiers were using breaching charges to cut through the security barriers, sending shockwaves through the station's superstructure. The Star Song waited in its assigned berth, still disguised as an ordinary cargo hauler, but as they approached, Maya felt something wrong. The ship's energy signature was different, muted in a way that made her awakened senses scream warnings. "It's a trap," she realized, but too late. Captain Thorn stepped out from behind the ship's landing struts, his black armor gleaming under the docking bay's harsh lighting. He wasn't alone. A full squad of Consortium elite soldiers surrounded the area, their weapons trained on Maya and her companions. "Maya Chen." Thorn's voice was calm, almost conversational. "You've led us quite a chase. But it ends here." Maya stepped protectively in front of Arya and Zack. "What do you want, Thorn?" "What I've always wanted. Order. Stability. A galaxy where genetic purity means something more than ancient fairy tales and delusions of grandeur." Thorn's helmet retracted, revealing a face that was all sharp angles and cold intelligence. "You and your kind represent chaos. Uncontrolled variables in an equation that took us 3,000 years to balance. And what about the silence?" Maya shot back. "What about the worlds that are disappearing one by one? Are you so concerned with maintaining order that you'll ignore the real threat?" Thorn's expression didn't change. "The reports of vanishing worlds are greatly exaggerated. Separatist propaganda designed to weaken faith in Consortium authority." Maya stared at him in disbelief. "You actually don't know, do you? Your own government hasn't told you what's really happening out there." For just a moment, uncertainty flickered across Thorn's features. But then his training reasserted itself and his face became a mask of cold determination again. "Surrender now, and I'll ensure your companions are treated leniently. Continue to resist and I'll be forced to classify this as a terrorist action." Maya felt power building in her bloodline, golden light beginning to flow through her veins. Beside her, Zack's starstone fragments were singing with harmonic resonance, while Arya unconsciously hummed a tune that made the air around them shimmer with potential. "There's a third option," Maya said softly. She reached out with her awakened consciousness, touching the quantum fields that held the space station together. For a moment she felt the vast complexity of the structure, millions of tons of metal and ceramic held in precise configuration by gravity and engineering. And then she twisted those fields. Just slightly, the docking bay's artificial gravity failed, sending everyone floating toward the ceiling. In the confusion, Maya grabbed her companions and activated the emergency thrusters built into her stolen maintenance suit. They shot through the docking bay's exit, just as Thorn's soldiers opened fire, energy bolts crackling harmlessly through the space they'd just vacated. Maya had bought them seconds, maybe minutes at most. The ship, Zack gasped as they tumbled through zero gravity. Forget the ship, Maya replied. Thorne's people have it rigged with tracking devices. We need another way off this station. Arya pointed to a sleek civilian yacht moored at the far end of the docking ring. What about that one? Maya smiled grimly. Commandeering vessels is a skill every good rebel should learn. They broke into the yacht and fired up its engines just as Thorne's forces reached the docking bay. The ship wasn't much compared to the Star Song, but it was fast and maneuverable, and most importantly, it wasn't being tracked by consortium intelligence. As they accelerated away from Kepler Station, Maya felt a deep sadness at losing her grandmother's ship, but she also felt something else, hope. They were 3 now instead of 1, and each awakening made the others stronger. Where to next? Arya asked from the co-pilot's seat. Maya studied the star charts, looking for systems where other descendants might be. The Veil Nebula was a place where reality bent like light through water. Maya piloted their stolen yacht through streams of ionized gas that glowed with colors that had no names, following energy readings that shouldn't exist according to conventional physics. 3 days into the nebula, they found what they were looking for. The research station Epsilon floated in a pocket of stable space, its hull pocked with meteor damage and cosmic radiation burns. According to the records, it had been abandoned 50 years ago after a dimensional research experiment went wrong, but someone was still here. The energy signatures Maya's awakened senses detected were unlike anything she'd encountered before. Life signs are strange, Arya reported from the sensor station. They're there, then they're not, then they're somewhere else entirely. Void dancers, Maya said with certainty. They exist partially outside normal space-time. That's why the readings are inconsistent. They docked with the station using an airlock that looked like it hadn't been used in decades. The interior was a maze of corridors that seemed to stretch further than the station's external dimensions should allow. Emergency lighting flickered in patterns that hurt to look at directly, and the air tasted of ozone and impossible mathematics. Maya led them deeper into the station, following the increasingly strong sensation of awakened consciousness nearby. They passed laboratories filled with equipment that defied description, chambers where the walls were made of crystallized spacetime, and observation decks that looked out onto dimensions that existed perpendicular to normal reality. They found her in the station's central core, floating in a meditation pose surrounded by swirling patterns of distorted space. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way, her skin translucent enough to show the network of energy that flowed through her body instead of blood. When she opened her eyes, they were windows into the void between worlds. I wondered when you would arrive, she said, her voice echoing from multiple directions at once. The quantum threads have been singing of your approach for days. Maya stepped forward carefully, aware that sudden movements could trigger defensive reflexes in a being who could step between dimensions without thinking. My name is Maya Chen. I'm gathering descendants of the First Empire. The woman smiled, an expression that was both sad and amused. I am Kira Blackwood, last of the Void Dancers who remember the old ways. And you are the one the Guardian spoke of, the heir who will either save the galaxy or watch it die. You know about the Guardian? I know about many things. When you can see across multiple dimensions simultaneously, patterns become clear that are invisible to those trapped in linear spacetime. Kira gestured, and the space around them folded, bringing the others closer without them actually moving. The Devourers are almost ready to begin their final assault. 3 more worlds fell to the silence while you were crossing the nebula. Maya felt ice form in her stomach. How much time do we have? Weeks, perhaps days. They're targeting the heart of all things directly now, trying to sever the connections that hold consciousness together across the galaxy. Kira stood, and reality rippled around her like water. But there is hope. The 4 bloodlines are represented here, and together we might have enough power to reawaken the heart. 4. Maya looked around at their small group. There are only 3 of us. Kira smiled and gestured to the observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum, a familiar ship was approaching through the nebula's shifting currents. The CSS Retribution, its black hull scarred from recent battles, moved with the careful precision of a vessel whose captain knew he was walking into the unknown. Captain Thorne, Zack said grimly, his hand moving instinctively to the crystal weapon Maya had given him. Wait, Kira said softly. Look more carefully at his ship. At the energy pattern surrounding it, Maya extended her awakened senses and gasped. The Retribution was surrounded by the distinctive aura of awakened consciousness. Someone aboard that ship carried bloodline markers as strong as her own. Thorn himself? She asked. No, but someone very close to him. Someone whose awakening triggered when they came too near to others of our kind. Kira's smile became knowing. The irony is exquisite. The Consortium's greatest hunter is traveling with one of the very beings he's been ordered to capture. The Retribution docked with the station, its boarding tube sealing against the ancient airlock with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Maya tensed, ready for battle, but the first person through the airlock wasn't Captain Thorn. It was a young woman in Consortium Medical Corps uniform, her dark hair marked with silver streaks that seemed to move with their own inner light. Her eyes were the deep blue of space between stars, and when she looked at Maya, there was recognition there. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the woman said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the station's quantum fields resonate in sympathy. Chief Medical Officer of the CSS Retribution and apparently a descendant of beings I never knew existed. Behind her, Captain Thorn emerged from the airlock, his face a mask of confusion and barely controlled anger. Dr. Vasquez, I ordered you to remain on the ship. And I told you that wasn't going to happen, Elena replied calmly. Not when I'm finally starting to understand what's been happening to me. Maya studied the tension between them and realized what must have occurred. Your abilities awakened when you got close to us, didn't they? And Captain Thorn has been dealing with a medical officer who can suddenly see quantum fields and manipulate biological systems at the cellular level. Elena nodded. 3 days ago I was a normal human doctor. Now I can sense the health of entire ecosystems from orbit, and my patients heal 3 times faster than they should. She looked at her hands, as if seeing them for the first time. The captain thinks I've been infected with some kind of alien virus. In a sense you have, Kira said gently. Infected with the memory of what humanity was meant to become, before the Consortium decided that genetic stagnation was safer than growth. Thorn's hand moved to his weapon, but he didn't draw it. This is all very fascinating, but I have orders to arrest these individuals for crimes against racial purity. Look around you, Captain, Maya said, gesturing to the impossible architecture of the station. Look at what we're capable of when we work together instead of trying to suppress each other. Don't you think the galaxy might need that kind of cooperation right now? For a moment, Thorn's certainty wavered. Then his communication system crackled with an urgent message from Consortium High Command. Captain Thorn, this is Admiral Caney. Abort your current mission immediately and return to Sector 7. We have a situation. Thorn activated his suit's holographic display, and suddenly they were all looking at real-time footage from a Consortium core world. The planet's surface was completely gray, as if someone had drained all color from existence. Cities stood empty but intact, their population simply gone without a trace. The entire system, Admiral Caney's voice continued. 12 billion beings erased from existence in the space of 6 hours. No distress signals, no evidence of attack, no debris. It's as if they never existed at all. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. The silence has reached the core worlds. What silence? Thorn demanded. The thing that's been consuming civilizations while you've been chasing us across the galaxy, Maya said angrily. The reason we need to work together instead of fighting each other. Dr. Vasquez was studying the holographic data with her newly awakened senses. The quantum signature is all wrong. It's not just that the people are gone, it's that the space they occupied has been fundamentally altered. The very concept of life has been edited out of local reality. Kira nodded grimly. The Devourers have begun their final phase. Soon they'll have enough power to reach the heart of all things itself. What's the heart of all things? Thorn asked, his military training overcoming his confusion. The source of consciousness in our galaxy, Maya explained. The wellspring from which all awareness flows. If the Devourers consume it, every thinking being in the galaxy will simply cease to exist. Thorn stared at the footage of the dead world, his face cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally grim acceptance. How do we stop them? Together, Maya said simply. The 4 awakened bloodlines working in harmony can reactivate defenses that have been dormant for 3,000 years. Thorn looked at his medical officer, at the impossible station around them, at the evidence of threats his superiors had never told him about. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy with the weight of a lifetime of certainty being overturned. What do you need me to do? Maya smiled, and for the first time since leaving the Guardian she felt real hope. Help us save the galaxy, Captain. Help us remember what we were meant to be. The four of them stood together in the station's central core, their different bloodlines creating a harmony of power that made reality itself sing. Outside, the Veil Nebula pulsed with new patterns of light, as if the universe was finally waking up from a 3,000-year sleep. The real work was just beginning. But for the first time, Maya believed they might actually succeed. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and it deserved a chance to keep growing, keep learning, keep reaching for the stars. And they were going to give it that chance, no matter what it cost them.